he just went low. He's in his head. He's in his head. He's open. His head wide open. Cracked open in the face.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Mario Mantis 100 back again with another episode of How's My Team. Again, I have to apologise for last episode for my voice sounding bad. Obviously, my voice is pretty much mostly back. I'm still feeling a little bit sick, so if I feel sounding a little bit nasally and stuff like that, still sick. I think I got the flu. Well, at least I've got a runny nose. Definitely, I still got my cough a little bit as well. But definitely congested in my head. So if I sound a bit nasally this episode compared to last episode, obviously not having my voice pretty much at all, apologise once again, but it is that time of year. So yeah, but show must go on. Obviously we got to talk about the Giants taking on the Bulldogs. We've also got the Titans against the Bulldogs at Magic Round for the NRLW, the women's game, and also the Titans against the Panthers as well on Saturday. But first, let's start with the Giants. So it's Friday morning. The game was on Thursday night, obviously. It was on last night. It was a loss to the Giants, which I kind of expected a little bit from the Bulldogs. Obviously, the Bulldogs are going to play for finals at this point because they're in 8th at this present time, and we're playing to stay in the 8. And obviously the Giants had a few players out, at least 3 players. Obviously Josh Kelly was injured, as well as Jack Buckley. They were both injured, and mostly injured probably until the rest of the home away season finishes. And obviously Toby Green was out for suspension for striking last week in the Sydney Derby. So I expected a loss, but it was not just a loss, it was an absolute drubbing. It was an 88-point loss to the Bulldogs. Yes, 88 points. 132 to 44. 19 goals, 18 to 6 goals, 8. And what I will say is that, the Bulldogs, they could have won by a hell of a lot more. It could have been a 100-point demolition, 100-point plus. And it didn't start well at all. They kicked 6 goals, 5 in the first quarter, where we scored 1 goal, 2. Our best scoring quarter was the third quarter, which ended up being 3 goals, 4. But we had 2 behinds in the last quarter as well, which was pretty disappointing from the Giants' point of view. Obviously, still in the 8, but the scoring did slow down, obviously, in the second half. They only scored 4 goals, 4 in the third quarter, and 3 goals, 5 in the last quarter, in the fourth quarter, but 6 goals, 5, and then 6 goals, 4 in the first 2 quarters for the Bulldogs. When you're scoring that high and scoring 12 goals and 9 behinds in a half, that's not ideal. And you think that a team could probably turn things around, but obviously not to be in this case. So we do maintain a spot in the top 8. But unfortunately, the more important thing, more than just the wins, was our percentage. And our percentage took a massive hit. I think it was up to 115 last week, or 116. I think it was up close to Hawthorn's 119.9, and we dropped right down to 111.3 with the 88-point loss, which means that we're the second worst in the top 8, or even the top 9 in terms of percentage. Obviously, the Brisbane Lions is the only one that is lower, with 110.8, but they have still got to play Collingwood in the 2023 Grand Final rematch, which I believe that could be at the MCG, I'm not sure. But obviously the Western Bulldogs are still adrift, a win from 7th to 8th, but we did drop to 7th from 6th, and mainly because of percentage. Obviously, Freo have got to play Carlton. Hawthorn is probably the biggest one. It's the biggest game here in the fact that they play the Adelaide Crows. They play them today, so in terms of recording, I don't know what the result will be for that. But obviously, when this gets uploaded, I will know that by then what the results will be. But yeah, I think a lot of the top 8 sides are playing teams that are outside the 8, apart from obviously Adelaide and Hawthorn playing each other, and Collingwood and Brisbane playing each other. Gold Coast obviously outside the 8 with the game in hand. Obviously they play West Coast today, or tomorrow, I think, as well. Actually, let me have a look at that. I'm pretty sure it is West Coast. I did have a look yesterday, but I'll double check that. But yeah, I knew that they were probably going to struggle a little bit. No, they play Richmond. Sorry, they play Richmond. The Gold Coast Suns. So yeah, but it was always going to be an interesting game. In fact, like, I thought if any game that we're going to lose, it was probably going to be this one. In the next month. But with the way that they played, it was, yeah, you could tell that there was players out, there was players coming back in that hadn't played for a while or played for a couple of weeks and stuff like that, and the cohesion with the team was just not there. And I like I said, I don't mind the loss, because obviously having a winning streak going into finals is a double-edged sword. It can be really good for a team to maintain a winning streak to the finals, especially if you're a team in the top 4, for example, which obviously the Giants ended up being last year, and they got on a decent roll before finals. Obviously, I think they lost maybe 1 or 2 on the way through in the last 7 or 8 weeks, but to have a streak going through can be a double-edged sword, because you can be right up for the fight and playing well in the positive sense, but in the negative sense, it's also that streak can't always. It's not always a situation where you can keep that streak right through into the grand final and win one. Sometimes you do got to lose a game somewhere, because ultimately, especially during the finals, a lot of the time, unless you're in the top 4, losing final means that you're out completely. And having a winning streak, all a team has to do is shut down maybe one of the moving parts that's actually really working. Obviously, with us, it was Finn Callahan, obviously Tom Green as well, shutting down them. Jesse Hogan didn't actually score at all during the game as well. But, especially the cohesion in the middle, the movement from the defensive half to the forward half was not there again for this game, and that's not good. It's not good enough. Now, ultimately, we play North Melbourne next week. I believe that's Saturday. That's a Saturday game. A Sunday game. Early Sunday. The first game on Sunday. So we have a 10-day break until we play our next game. Obviously, in Canberra, will be the last home game in Canberra. Obviously, the second last home game of the season for the Giants, because obviously they're going to play St Kilda, but the date has not been set for that yet. Most likely, probably could be Sunday, but I'm not 100% sure. Could be Saturday. It doesn't really matter with the Giants because obviously the Giants, in terms of the fixture, obviously going after the North game, we play on the Saturday, the week after against the Suns. So the week after that obviously is the week of the 18th, which is the Monday. So it could be anywhere from Thursday right through till Sunday for round 24. But against the Saints, most likely, I would think that it'd probably be a Saturday game, I would imagine, during the day. But obviously don't know the date as of yet, but we should know that in the next week or two. And especially in the next week or two, because obviously people are going to set up to go to the game, despite it obviously being St Kilda and they're not making finals at all. But these next 3 games are very important for the Giants. If we can manage to win all of them, we'll definitely slot in for finals. If we do drop a game, excuse me. If we do drop a game, it makes it very, very difficult. If we lose 2, then we're almost basically out at that point. If we lose 2 games out of the 3, we'd have to rely on like the Gold Coast with obviously the extra game in hand to lose an extra game somewhere, or the Western Bulldogs to lose a game or something like that to stay in. Because I think we're not going to make obviously top 4. I don't think they'd have to win every single game, which would put us at 64, which obviously Collingwood are at 60 at the moment, and obviously the Giants are at 52, but there is a congestion obviously between the Giants and Geelong, which is obviously the team that's in 4th through to 7th. They're all 52 points at the moment, but obviously Geelong, Hawthorn and Fremantle are all going to play still. And then obviously the Gold Coast, with the extra game in hand, could possibly jump into that 52 spot as well. So that might even be right through to 8th as well, because the Western Bulldogs will be pushed out if Gold Coast win against Richmond this week, obviously, which I don't know at this point, but it is a Saturday game, so I will know by the time this goes up. But that congestion for any of those teams in the top 8 could vie for a top 4, and 64 points is a score that possibly could be a top 4 score. It will just be on percentage then, and obviously with the Giants, they're going to build a lot of their percentage, and hopefully they can against North Melbourne. Obviously they're playing in Canberra, so it's not always the best place to play. But obviously we do have obviously the Saints game at home, and obviously we go to the Gold Coast against the Suns as well. So hopefully there can be hefty wins in terms of all those games. I'm hoping they win all of them. Because I think with the Suns, I think they can, if they do drop the game against the Giants, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Because obviously at that point they'd be on the same, if they win obviously this week, they'd be on the same amount of points as the Giants, and obviously would be on the same amount of points as like the Bulldogs would be still 4 points. They're still 4 points adrift of the Giants at the moment. So if the Suns win, obviously they're on the same amount of points as the Giants. They'll push the Giants down to 8th at that point, but they'll be on the same amount of points as the Giants. So obviously the Western Bulldogs will be adrift some points as well, which is good for the Suns. So if they do end up losing it, obviously their percentage is not as good as the Western Bulldogs. So obviously they'll have to win. When they win, they'll have to win by a hefty margin. But obviously with this week they could build a percentage booster for this game against Richmond. But yeah, 88-point drubbing against the Bulldogs for the Giants. Not an ideal result. Loss I expected. a loss by that margin I didn't expect, and pretty disappointed about that. And not a great way to start the weekend. Obviously, yes, being sick, obviously being the worst part of it, but in terms of results, not a great start, because obviously some of the games coming up for the Titans, for both teams of the Titans. So yeah. All right, we're going to talk about the Titans in just a second, but this is Monday night. I'd like to apologise. Obviously, this will probably be out hopefully on time. I usually don't record this late, so excuse the lighting. Just haven't had time to record the Titans results since Saturday afternoon. But let's talk about the Titans. So let's start with the women. And we made history. The Titans made history. We actually had a draw against the Bulldogs, 14 points all at Magic Round, and it was the first game of Magic Round, and we'll say the wet weather played a heavy part in pretty much all the games that we played in and around Sydney, whether it was the men's or women's games. In terms of like the wet weather, it was a mess. It's been a mess pretty much the entire weekend and in most of last week, if not all of last week. But it was 14 points all. So we actually, the Titans actually, I think we're behind at the start. No, sorry, we did score first. Yeah, so we went up to 10 points to nil towards the middle of the first half. Then the Bulldogs scored, and we did score our last try of the game, just probably about, 7 minutes before the end of the first half. No, sorry, that is wrong. A couple minutes to like 2.5. I keep forgetting it's 35-minute halves for the NRLW compared to 40 minutes a half for the men's game. So we scored our last try a couple of minutes before half time, and then obviously the Bulldogs fought back. They fought back pretty heavily, scored 2 quick tries in the space of the first 10-15 minutes of the second half. Then it was just, a lot of errors, but a lot of situations where it went to half, obviously went to full time. Both teams were attacking. I heard that the Titans were better in terms of attack, on the ground during the game, and I only watched the highlights of this because obviously I was at work when this game was going on, as well as obviously the men's game, which we'll go to in just a moment. But so I didn't watch either of these games in full. But I hear that the Titans were the better attacking team. Obviously, the Bulldogs had Taylor Preston try to kick a couple of field goals during the game and missed a few of missed pretty much all of them during the game, and some of them were very wide. I think Lauren Brown only had 1 or 2 attempts at a field goal, and she missed as well. Excuse me, still getting over the sickness. So it's almost gone. Probably sound a little bit, maybe more nasally and less nasally than I did a few days ago when I was recording for the Giants game. But I hear that the Titans played better and attacked better. So with that in mind, that actually does move us up a couple of spots. It moves us to 7th now. That's obviously with all the results that have happened on Saturday. We did go up to 6th, but obviously the Eels won yesterday, so we actually did drop out of the top 6 in the women's game. We dropped to 7th, but obviously we shared the points. We got at 1 point on the table for the draw with the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs are in front of us in 6th only because of their for and against. Their for and against is -6, whereas ours is -32 at the present moment. But it doesn't get any easier this week because we play the undefeated Roosters at home as the opening game on Sunday of our doubleheader for the Titans, and it's not going to get any easier. Now, ultimately, yes, we have won against the Roosters in the past, but this is a very different Roosters side. They're very ruthless. They beat the Tigers pretty convincingly in the second game of Magic Round. They played after the Titans and the Bulldogs game, and they did pretty well. So it's going to be a very, very tough game. I will say it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be really tough for this Titans side. But in saying that, yes, they've got the Roosters, and then after that they've got the Sharks, and then they've got the Dragons in the next couple of weeks. So possible winning games ultimately at this point in time with the women's game. With the positions at the moment, the Sharks are under us in 8th, and the Dragons are in 9th at the moment. But obviously those situations will change as soon as next round. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't get absolutely belted like we did with the Broncos game. Hopefully the Titans do show up against the Roosters. The Roosters are obviously going to be very tough to beat. But, if we're in for the fight, I think that we're going to do okay. But, yeah, we need to up our defense, especially against the Roosters. Obviously, we want to score as well, but the defense is probably the main thing that we probably want to restrict the points from the Roosters because they can score from a lot of areas. So 14 points all. First draw in the NRLW competition as well. So myself and Jordan feel like, we're kind of made history in the fact that neither of any of the teams in the competition have drawn outside of Golden Point in their NRLW. I was surprised that there wasn't at least one or two, but can't take that history off us now. And that 1 point could be very important as the road to the finals becomes a little bit clearer on the way through, because that extra point could put the Bulldogs and the Titans in the top 6. Obviously, the Bulldogs are in there at the moment. Obviously, the Titans are not, only on for and against, but that 1 point could matter. So you never know. So 14-point all draw against the Bulldogs at the first NRLW Magic Round in Newcastle. And then we move on to the men's Titans team, and it was looking like it was going to be an absolute slaughter against the Panthers. The Panthers were up heavily in the first half, but it ended up only being 4 points. So it was 30 points to 26. The Panthers over the Titans, and it actually ended up being a heartbreaker. So we'll talk about this game because it's very in particular. I have a few things to talk about with this game. Starting with the Panthers, they scored 24 points in the first half. We didn't score any points in the first half, though I will say with the Panthers, they didn't score until at least around the 20th minute. So the defense was pretty good in the first half when it comes to the Titans in the first quarter of the game. They held them out in terms of points. Ultimately, 24 points and a half. It's not great. And then we looked like it was going to be an onslaught, and then we ended up scoring 26 unanswered points in the second half. The Titans. I don't know where this came from. Ultimately, I think partially some of it was Jaden Campbell. And in fact, Jaden Campbell, obviously, in terms of the Titans' social media, was basically said to be the man of the match. And if he was the official man of the match of the whole match entirely, I wouldn't be upset with that because he played out of his skin to get this team towards getting over the line, and he did basically everything that he could have done. And yeah, they ended up scoring. Philip Sami scored our last try on the way to an unlikely winning situation that we thought we were going to have. And then we'll just talk about the controversy. We'll get that over with because that's the first thing that we do need to talk about, because obviously the rest of the game obviously kind of revolves around that. So Phillip Sami scores pretty wide. So Jaden Campbell is trying to take the kick from near the sideline. And for whatever reason, the Panthers trainer decides to run from where the Panthers team is, which is obviously at the goal line, which usually when a team scores, the opposition team is usually down there in a group. They're usually talking about, like, obviously strategies, obviously defense, things that they've picked up, and runs down towards the middle of the ground and somehow decides to run in front of Jaden Campbell just as he's about to take his kick for the conversion, which would have put us up by 4 instead of by 2 after the game, after the try was scored. So ultimately at that point, the Panthers would have had to have scored a try to either level it up or to win the game, obviously with a successful conversion, rather than 2 points, which obviously could lead into a 2-point field goal. And commentary picked up on it, obviously on Fox League, which obviously it was on paid television, and it was pretty disgraceful, honestly. And I think, yes, that obviously the Panthers trainer, obviously at the time, it's funny because they the way that it looked like, and I've watched it multiple times, even as a Titans, even if I wasn't a Titans fan, it looks like he runs deliberately towards Jaden Campbell to put him off. Now, ultimately, Jaden does miss the kick, but it's like obviously he tried to reset the kicker, the kicking tee, the ball on tee to kick the conversion and misses, right? So obviously it's only 2-point advantage rather than 4 if he gets the conversion, which obviously was a pretty hard kick, and he's missed at least 1 during the game. But it was a very important 2 points, and I think the Panthers even knew that. They knew that they had to get some momentum back, and I feel like it was deliberate. I don't think that it was by accident, because we've had situations with the Panthers before, and now I know some people will say that I am a Panthers hater, but some of the situations that have been coming out with trainers in the past when it comes to the Panthers, it's not a great look for the Panthers. You know, this is a team that's won the competition 4 times in a row, and you're getting situations like this. Now, ultimately, I know that some teams will play dirty or will, find a tactic to get ahead and win games against other opponents. I've seen it with Melbourne. I've seen it with Manly. I've seen it with the Sydney Roosters. I've seen it with many teams in the competition. That's not really a surprise. I've seen it with the Broncos as well. That's the most obvious one for me. But the Panthers are showing, even this season, this isn't an outlier, because ultimately they had in the draw that they had with the Cowboys, which is actually what's keeping them alive in terms of a top 4 spot, not only just the wins, but obviously the extra point because of that game. They wet the ball before the Cowboys end up having possession of the ball. I can't remember if this was in Golden Point or whether this was during the game normally. But obviously wetting the ball makes it very slippery. And a trainer did that. And a trainer did get in trouble for that. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was just a fine at that point. Now, ultimately, of course, since it's Monday, we know the result of what the ban is probably going to be for the trainer. They haven't fully... the competition has come out and said that it's like going to be a 5-week ban and a few $1,000s. I think it was like $5,000 or something like that as the fine. Have I got a picture of it here? I do. No, that's a different thing altogether. Hold on, I will find the post for it because I did see it come up. Fined for a club is fined for $50,000 for the situation, and the trainer is looking to get 5 weeks banned. Obviously, they have, like, the Panthers do have to obviously commit to the breach. They have to say yes to the breach or no. But there could have been multiple opportunities that the Titans could have won this game even without that conversion. But ultimately, of course, missing the conversion, had the 2 points advantage, held them out for a decent amount of time. And then obviously when the conversion happened, and I was at work when this happened, and once I didn't know obviously the context in terms of the conversion being missed. That wasn't until way after. But seeing that pop up as a notification on my phone, because obviously I have the Titans app, I knew immediately, I'm like, Nathan Cleary's playing. 2-point conversion is in play here. Like 2-point field goal is in play because it's a 2-point advantage for the Titans. And surely enough, with a minute and a half left to go in the second half, goes pass back, which I got to admit, the pass to Nathan Cleary from Dylan Edwards I think it was Dylan Edwards or Mitch Kenny, whoever it was, went back like 20, 30 metres after they were attacking to score a try, passed it back to well over the 40-metre line, and Nathan Cleary steps up, kicks it, gets very close to stepping over the line, and nails it straight down the middle. So it ends up being a tie game, obviously goes to golden points, and obviously the Panthers end up with the ball, and I think after a few minutes, they make a break and obviously score the try, basically under the post. So yeah, it ended up being a 30 to 26 point loss. But I will say it was great to see this team really step up to a team that very much looked like, I don't know whether they put the Q in the rack, but they would have been looking for more points, obviously, in terms of for and against, because the Panthers only have 83 in the positive right now. But in terms of the Panthers, maybe they kind of underestimated the Titans, and then the Titans obviously turned it on in terms of the opportunity of possession and stuff like that. And Jayden Campbell just pulled it out of his hat. But we only lost by 4 points. So realistically, our for and against is still the same to the Parramatta Eels right now. And we still haven't dropped to 17th. We're still in 16th, so second last still. But leading into this game, very important game coming up in the second game of the doubleheader. Obviously, like I said, with the women's game, that's the first of the doubleheader against the Roosters. We have the men's game at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's the earlier Sunday game on pay TV against the Rabbitohs, the second spoon bowl of the year. And it's very important that the Titans do win this game. If they win this game, they get into a situation where they edge in front of the Rabbitohs in terms of points. Because obviously the Eels still got to play the Cowboys as well. So that's 13th versus 15th. So depending on that result as well, it'll be very important to see where the Titans will end up. Because if the Titans win by a decent amount, and they're going to win by like 30 odd, they could also jump Newcastle. Newcastle's in 14th at the moment, but they also play Penrith as well. So they could end in the revenge game basically for Penrith, because obviously the Knights beat them in Bathurst earlier this year. So it's going to be interesting for those 5 teams from 13th through to 17th. Obviously very important that the Titans do win this game, because the Rabbitohs have still got a bye in hand. Now the Cowboys also do have a bye, obviously, but they're on 19 points, obviously, because of the draw as well. So they're in a situation where they'll at least have 21 points by the end of the season, if not more, obviously, with games to play. But obviously we'll have that 2-point buffer to the Rabbitohs until obviously their bye happens. And then there'll be, all like the Rabbitohs, the Titans, the Eels, and the Knights, especially if the Knights and the Eels both lose, all on 18 points around when the Rabbitohs get their bye. which I'm not sure if it's the week. It's not this week, but it's next week. I can't remember which week it is, but it's very important for the Titans, especially using the motivation for last game against Penrith to play well against the Rabbitohs, because the Rabbitohs are down on troops. I don't know if they're getting any troops back. Obviously, that won't be out until I think tomorrow. I think the team list comes out on Tuesdays. In terms of obviously tomorrow, in terms of recording, if not Wednesday. So obviously this is a Sunday game, so we'll know ahead of time. But they're down on troops a lot, the Rabbitohs, and staring down the barrel of a wooden spoon, and the first wooden spoon in Wayne Bennett's career. So hopefully we can come away with the win in the second spoon bowl of the year. Very important result for the Titans to get the win here, because if they don't, they will drop to the bottom and will stay at the bottom, because apart from that game, obviously we've got the Sharks, we've got the Warriors, we've got the Dolphins, and got the Tigers in the last 4 weeks of the competition. And yes, we could get maybe 1 or 2 wins on the way if we can do the double on the Warriors, but the Rabbitohs are down on troops right now, and with the team that we've got, yes, we've got a few injuries, obviously, to this team. I feel like we could win, and we could win by a decent margin, like healthy margin. I'd say at least maybe like 8+ points. Would rather a lot more than that, obviously, but just sticking with those with at least 8 points, I think that they could win by. That'd be great. Obviously, more points would be very important. But yeah, and I can't see where a win will come from unless we beat the Tigers. And yeah, with obviously the Rabbitohs, if they get a win, obviously they'll go up to 20 points with their extra bye. So whatever points they can end up getting, they'll avoid the wooden spoon because they've got a bye in hand at the moment. But it's just one of those things where you just got to win as many games as possible, and there's not a lot of games left, obviously, with the season. There's 5 games left, and the Titans are getting very close to the bottom of the ladder. But yeah, 30 points to 26 against the Panthers over the Titans. In a pretty good showing from the Titans, obviously without controversy in terms of the win. But yeah, it's just one of those things. But it's just another situation. And even then, Casey Badger was in the bunker, so we did have a penalty try that was also disallowed, because apparently they didn't call it a penalty try, but after there was no try, they gave it a penalty anyway for contact. So Brian To'o only got a fine rather than obviously being off on report, and obviously possibly getting weeks for it. So yeah, so you can see that I'm a little bit bitter, but I will say that it was a good effort by the Titans regardless of the result. Obviously, yes, taking the controversy out of it, coming back from 24 down to be up 26-24 with a kick to come, obviously, and holding on until golden point, obviously, because obviously the Panthers could have scored again. Like a minute and a half is not a lot of time, but they could have scored again, as they did in the first half. So, yeah. But very important to win the second spoon bowl against the Rabbitohs on Sunday.